Hi, this is Madison Miner with Protect Our Kids on Say What podcast. Today, I have the huge privilege of having Dr. Stefan Bean on interview. Dr. Bean, welcome to our show and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Madison. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Now, I know in your professional vocation, you are the superintendent of Orange County, which is a huge district. How many schools do you represent?
Yeah, so we have in the counties, I'm a county superintendent. We have 28 school districts, over 600 schools, over 40 charter schools, all representing 450,000 kids.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
That's a lot of children. So, in all of your spare time, you took the time out of your life with a co-author with Kathy Nash. Is that
Yep,
correct?
that's correct. Yep.
And you wrote a book. I brought it with me. You wrote this amazing book, Lifted to
Oh,
Lead. And so, I would love to just kind of ask you some questions about that today.
of course.
So, your story is incredible. You go from Saigon to superintendent of an entire county. And I can just see from reading in that book that there was such a theme of resilience and hope that shaped your life so far.
Yeah.
What is the core message of Lifted to Lead?
Great question. I think the core message is that everybody has the power to overcome and succeed, especially with people around them lifting them through those challenges. It's actually, and it's an interesting memoir that follows, and I'll talk a little bit about it as we go through the interview, but goes up and down, follows the up and down journey that God has put me in, and then it turns into a love story, and not too many people know that. So without revealing the love story, it's at the end of the day just very. I think it's a message of hope for our community, especially in a world that's so polarizing right now, and that we can overcome no matter what obstacles that we may face with
Yeah,
others.
that's huge. That's important. And so in the book, you talked about, and you just kind of reiterated, you talked about being lifted by others early on in your life. Can you share a moment where someone had a belief in you that changed the trajectory of your entire life?
I grew up with a disability from polio when I was in Vietnam. And so when I came over to the United States in 75, placed in a foster home, and then later to be adopted by the Beans, I struggled in elementary school, kindergarten through fifth grade, because I missed probably half of the schooling because of surgeries that I had, like five major surgeries, lots of therapy, like speech and occupational therapy. So back in the 70s and 80s, they didn't really have this idea of full inclusion. So they pulled out students with disability. And I didn't do very well. So in fifth or sixth grade, Mr. G, he said, Stefan, I don't really care that you're in a wheelchair. I don't care that you need English as your second language and that you're learning the language. What I do care about is that you have this gift. And he said, you have the gift of gab, meaning that I like to talk a lot. And he said, we're going to use that gift, and what we're going to do is you're only going to give oral presentations this whole year. And I talk about this in the book, and that he did not require me to turn in a paper or take those reading comprehension tests. He just said, speak orally the things that you learned this year. And as you can imagine, Madison, that built confidence in me, that built strength, but it also built knowledge of the world around me because I spoke it. And from that point, it set me up for the success that I would incur. And so I was invited to speak in front of 15,000 people in Washington, D.C. on the Lincoln Memorial, right overlooking the water in the Washington Memorial. And there are 15,000 people on the lawn. And I spoke on social justice for people with disabilities at the age of 14. And that was because of Mr. Geisinger. So, that he was that one person that truly changed the trajectory of my life.
That's amazing. Wow. Faith, community, and adversity are woven through your journey.
Yeah.
What role have these forces played in defining your leadership philosophy?
I think it started back with, again, meeting the Beans. So, Madison, Operation Baby Lift was this big operation by President Ford that would bring in over 3,000 orphans to the United States and other countries to be adopted. And so I was brought over on a flight safely, and I won't reveal a pretty um, amazing story of Operation Baby Lift, but I will share that when I met the Beans, Judy Bean had the most compassion and love for the most vulnerable in our community. So she and Greg took in over 100 foster kids, including myself, and they adopted 10 of us, including myself. So I had 10 brothers and sisters, and then they had two of their own kids. So there were 12 of us in the family. And Judy instilled in me this idea that, God put us on this earth to really, truly care for and be an advocate for the most vulnerable in our community. Like I said, they took in over 100 kids, but many of those kids had disabilities like myself. Um, Many of them were abused. In fact, I remember baby Arthur, who came to us at 6 months, and he had a shunt from his brain to drain the fluid because he had been abused so much. His parents, natural parents, hit him against the wall. So at the age of 2, I remember coming down the stairs, and there's Judy holding the lifeless body of baby Arthur because he had succumbed to all the injuries that he had. Those are the kind of kids that Judy and Greg took in. And then Dad, Gregory, would often tell me that I should prioritize education because education would unlock the potential in me. But more significant, he said, education would unlock the potential in others through me. And so I thought that was a very intriguing statement at the time, but now I look back and it was very prophetic because he's right. Education through me, serving over 450,000 kids, unlocking their potential.
Yeah, and that's incredible just how they had hundreds, right? Over 100 foster kids, and yet they were able to feed into you
Yeah,
individually as well. That's just so telling of their character and their intentionality and how they parented.
incredible.
Yeah, that's amazing. So going back to your book, Lifted to Lead contains a leadership framework.
Yeah.
Can you break down the key elements of the Lifted model and share how each applies practically in
Yeah.
schools?
Yeah, great question. So we came up with this lifted framework from the story in high school. I had classrooms on the second floor, and there was no elevator in the building. And so every morning, when I was in my wheelchair, I'd roll up, and there was 4 of my friends waiting, and they lifted me up those stairs every morning to get to class. They told me later they didn't do it because they pitied me, but they did it because they wanted me to get to where they were going. And so they lifted me every day. And so this word lifted, from being lifted out of Vietnam to my parents lifting me to my classmates lifting me, came up with this acronym, this leadership framework called Lifted. And so the L is listen and learn. The I is inspire potential. The F is foster authenticity, transform through hope, empower others, and then develop, or actually it's empower strengths and then develop others. And so that all comes up with Lifted to Lead. And if more people did that in any organization, company, school district, or whatever, then we would have this value of lifting our community one student, one individual at a time.
Yeah, it's such a profound acronym, profound idea that, but it's so simple. The basic,
Yes.
core of it is just be a good human
Yes.
and be around others while creating in them and inspiring them to be the best that they can be, right?
That's exactly right.
I,
Exactly right.
I love that. Emotional intelligence and empathy are central to your approach. How do you foster these qualities in especially in educators and administrators that you've been working hand in hand with?
I think that the best educators and best leaders in general are those that have the gift of empathy, where they truly learn, understand, and feel what our kids are going through, right? I've trained over hundreds of teachers and school leaders, and what stands apart, the really great ones, are the ones that have strong emotional intelligence. And so this lifted framework is a very empathetic approach where we listen and learn from each other, and we inspire the strengths in people, right? And we want to foster authenticity within ourselves. And so that's all about emotional intelligence. And by the way, emotional intelligence has been around since the 80s, mainly in business and the health care system. And only in the last maybe 5, 10 years do we start seeing it in education. But it is especially needed in education because our children grow up with so many challenges, especially with the world around them. And I say this all the time to the kids around Orange County. I got their back. I can empathize with them if they're foster youths, if they were adopted, if they were students with disabilities, come from a single family home. And as a leader, as adults, we have the only way we can really bring kids along with us is by first understanding them. And so that's what emotional intelligence is really about, is understanding our own emotions and how we navigate through the emotions of the people around us. And so I truly believe we have to foster that first as
Yeah.
adults.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think so often, even with my own kids, I kind of brush off their emotions, and I've been working really hard on not telling my daughter to stop crying, even though she does it so often.
I'm
And
with you.
instead, kind of getting to the core, right? To the root of
Yeah.
what it is that she's feeling, and not just, you know, putting the cup over the fire and taking the flame out, but actually helping her to understand how she's feeling and how to talk to and communicate to those around her, like her brothers who constantly pick on her.
It's so true about us. I mean, God created us as emotional beings,
Yeah.
right? And he actually, God himself has emotions himself. He was sad, angry, compassionate. And I think that the better we can understand our own emotions, the better we can manage ourselves, as well as, the experiences our kids have.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you think about authentic leadership, what's the hardest lesson that you can learn that you have had to learn? And how did it shape you as a leader today?
Oh man, that's a great question. I think that when you're an authentic leader and you lead from the heart with love, what sometimes will happen is that the opposite of that is pride. Lead with pride.
So, with your book, Lifted to Lead, what is an unexpected lesson that you hope every reader walks away with?
Wow, that's a deep question. Unexpected lesson. Love people through their scars. So, um, man, I don't know how to say it without revealing the book, but obviously, I told you the last half of the book is a love story, and in that love story, I talk about Janet. And I talk about how I met her, and then some our first date, which is really funny and cool, and then that moment that I proposed, and she said yes, right? And I learned through all of that she loved me through my scars, my physical scars, because like I told you, I had over 5 major surgeries before the age of 10. I had dozens of scars around my body, and then love me through my emotional scars because the trauma of going from one country into a brand new country, trying to have an identity in this new culture, new setting, um, and the pain, the physical pain and emotional pain of going through life with a disability. The lesson I learned is that when you love somebody through all their scars, you can lift them to no limits, and that's what Janet did.
Oh, that's beautiful. Who would you say that this book was written for? Educators, students, leaders, all of them, and why?
I think first it was written for Janet and my kids. And then the intended audience is actually anybody who may be going through challenges, whether they're in foster youth care right now and trying to find their own identity, whether they're going through a medical issue right now and they need prayers and people around them, whether they're trying to overcome loss of families or loss of a job, anybody in our life that has those big obstacles and hurdles, this book is for them. Because after they read it, it will give them hope that others experience the same thing,
Mm.
and it will give the hope that they too can be lifted through whatever challenges they may face.
Now, I've read a handful of books on leadership, and I feel like the main theme is always strategy. But the story that you tell in your book, it doesn't seem like a strategy book. It seems like really just a story that
Yeah.
you've lived. And so, what is it about storytelling that makes leadership more human and effective?
Wow, that's an excellent question, Madison, that I've not been asked and I've been on many podcasts. Um, we all have stories, right? And we all come to any setting with backgrounds and experiences. And I think when we tell each other our stories, it humanizes that setting. It gives the other person a perspective, a sense of empathy for what you're going through, right? We talked about empathy a little bit and emotional intelligence. And so I think that's the power of stories. And in this long story are all these sub stories of overcoming that that have built those leadership values that I lead by, right, under the lifted framework. And it's truly we all have incredible things that we learn from our own stories that we carry. And I think it's so empowering when we're allowed to share those stories with one another.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think it makes you so much more human because a
Yeah,
lot of times when you read these leadership books, it seems like a process and
yeah,
not about a personal experience. And so
Yeah.
I really did appreciate that about how you wrote this book.
Thank you.
Leadership is not theoretical, it's tested by crisis. What leadership lessons from your journey have guided you most during tough decisions?
This country was founded on having really good public dispute. Why? Because then we could actually come together and come up with a solution. Right now, we're having public disputes, but we're not willing to get to the table to solve these problems. And so I remind whoever I'm talking to is that if we keep the North Star of our students at the center of our conversation, then we all have common ground and we can move forward. So those are some tangible ways to do that. I have friends on that are Democrats and Republicans that see complete opposite side, and I remind them it's about the kids. We have to protect our kids. We have to educate our kids. We have to save our kids because they are the future workforce and community for our country.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you. That's absolutely the core. And speaking of students, you've spoken about them so often, and I love and I appreciate that. What do you most want to instill in them today that will prepare them for tomorrow's workforce, for tomorrow's world?
Janet made me promise her I'd take care of the kids. And I know she met our four kids, but she also met any kid, any student that I come in contact with in this job. And I've been quoted saying that I've got their backs, right? And so all of our students need to know that I have their back. I understand if you come from a foster home. I understand if you've been abused because I've seen it with my siblings, and I understand if you have a disability challenges. And so just know that there are many people, many adults like me that have your back, and we're going to protect you. We're going to come alongside you. We're going to help you. And I think that's the message that I want our 450,000 students to know.
That's beautiful. How about with your own kids? I know you have your four beautiful babies.
Four
How do
beautiful bean sprouts.
you, beautiful bean sprouts, I love that. How do you model leadership for your own children and what lessons have they taught you in return?
I model by doing as I say, right? And so they watch me, they listen to me when I make a lot of public speaking engagements. They watch me as I lead, and I just want them to know that you have to do what you say. And I try to model that for my four kids. Jan and I always instilled in them, just like our parents, this we have to first take care of one another, love one another, and then advocate for them, and then hold education as priority because priority will help them achieve what they want. And so that's what I try to hope that I can teach my kids. And they're amazing, amazing kids. They've all done well in high school and beyond, and they continue to do well. And it's all because you just anchored in love and education, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I agree. And so looking ahead, what legacy do you hope Lifted to Lead, your amazing book, leaves in the world of education and beyond?
That if we want to lift our students, we really need to do those values of listening and learning. We have to inspire potential in kids. We have to be real by fostering authenticity. We have to have hope for a better future. That's a transform through hope. I hope that people understand that this book will help them empower others' strengths. And then at the end of the day, it's all about developing our individuals and community to eventually replace us as leaders in this country that we live in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I have a couple of quick fire questions.
Okay.
What's one leadership mantra that you repeat to yourself when things get tough?
Wow. Wow. Actually, that in all things, right, God works for the good of those who love him. So my mantra is that everything's going to be okay
Yeah.
because God's got in control.
Mhm. What book, besides obviously Lifted to Lead, has most influenced your leadership and why?
Um, Leading from the heart, I think it's called Bowman and Deal, because it all has to do with when we as leaders, when we start with leading people with our own heart, then people will trust us.
Hmm. I'll have to read that one next.
Yes.
And if you could give one piece of advice to every Orange County student, what would that be?
Oh, you have so much potential in you, you don't even know yet. And people are going to inspire that potential in you. And one day you're going to be lifted to great heights, to a point where you'll lift others.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bean, so much for being on here. Please look at the bottom of the screen. I have a link to purchase Dr. Bean's amazing book, Lifted to Lead. Dr. Bean, thank you for being on today. Thank you for what you've done in Orange County as superintendent and in prior superintendent roles. I admire you so greatly, and I'm just so thankful for this time with you.
Thank you, Madison. Appreciate all your work too. You do for the community. So keep protecting our kids, okay?
Absolutely. I won't, can't stop, won't stop.
That's right. Thank you, Madison.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bean, for being on with me today. If you follow us on social media, thank you so much. We are on Facebook, Instagram, X. We also have a YouTube channel with our Say What podcast. And you can also go to our website at pok.org. And we look forward to seeing you next time.